You know that, like no other media organization, we have been telling you the truth about what's going on at St. Vincent Hospital. Be it the Massachusetts Nurses Association and their malpractice during the strike, be it those who want to get rid of the MNA and bring another union in with a decertification drive. And but there's one other wrinkle now. One of the nurses is, going to court and saying, hey, you can't ask me for any money for union dues when you're not our union. You're not doing anything. Well, that's kind of the layman's way of explaining it. But let's get somebody on board who can explain it better. He is from the National Right to Work Foundation, and they have been helping those who want to decertify the union at St. Vincent Hospital, but is also helping this nurse with federal charges for illegal union dues demands. Joining us now, the head of the National Right to Work Foundation, the president, Mark Mix. Mark, thank you so much for your time today.
Jim, glad to be on with you, and thanks for raising this issue up and talking about it. It's an important one, and it's one that doesn't get discussed very often with all the other news that's going on, for sure.
No, it is, and we cover a wide area of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Well, actually, all of both states, but this St. Vincent nurses issue. I mean, first of all, the strike. I mean, that was terrible. And not just for people in Central Mass with health care, but it had a domino effect throughout the region because, beds had to be closed there. Well, then guess what? People have to go to other places to get to these beds. The nurses, the behavior of the striking nurses was not good, especially toward nurses who decided health care is more important. I'm going to cross the picket line. I'm going to go to work. But you've got one particular nurse who has an issue with the union right now. Why don't you explain that to us?
Yeah, well, this issue, one nurse has the courage to stand up and ask and fight back against what now is a union dues and fees claim by the Massachusetts Nurses Association now that the strike is over. Basically, under the law, you cannot collect union dues or fees from non-members during a strike. And during a 300-day strike, almost a year, this is a pretty substantial amount of money. So what happened once the strike was settled, Jim, the union came back and sent out notices to the employees saying, oh, by the way, you owe us the union dues for the 300 days that the strike occurred. And so under the current law and under law that we've litigated all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, a worker who is unfortunately represented by the union because the union is the monopoly voice in the workplace, the only voice that can be heard by the employer, that any member who doesn't want to be a union member can still be forced to pay fees in order to work. Well, what happened here was you have a non-member who crossed the picket line, went to work, and then right after the strike's over, they get a letter saying, oh, by the way, you owe us money. That's illegal under the law, and the union can't demand that money from a non-member union person, nurse. If you're a union member and you went back on strike, you're in big trouble because the union's going to file a lawsuit against you internally with the union under the Constitution and bylaws, and they're going to fine you for all the money you earned during the strike if you didn't resign from the union. So we've had cases, Jim, where we've had workers that have been fined $10,000, $12,000, $40,000 because, to your point, and you make a valid point, these nursing healthcare professionals wanted to take care of their patients. And when a union acts like this and demands you out on the picket line and you want to take care of your patients, you got to make sure you resign your union membership. Lots of workers at St. Vincent did that. Lots of nurses did that. But yet now the union's come back and say, oh, by the way, you owe us money. That's not legal. It can't work. And she's going to stand up and fight it, and we're going to win for her.
Now, this isn't just replacement workers. This is union members who left to go back to work. Am I correct?
Exactly.
God. And they're going after, I mean, if you want to, look, they also, I know that the National Right to Work Foundation is also helping with the decertification vote. You're providing resources and legal representation. I mean, this just shows what I've said about the MNA as being a corrupt union. How do you go after these people, and at the same time you want them to keep you as the union?
Yeah, well, you do it because most employees don't know the intricacies of labor law. Union officials do. Their stock and trade is collecting dues money, and they want it from everybody. And, if you look at the contract that's in place there, that was in place before the strike, that's in place, after the strike, it will include this clause, Jim, that says we are the exclusive bargaining agent, and you can't talk to the employer can't talk to you unless we say so, grant you that permission. And so what happens here when the strike is called, the union says, all right, everybody that we represent, you got to walk the picket line. And obviously over 300 days, people begin to think about the efficacy of the strike. And to your point, there was lots of reports of harassment and intimidation and coercion during the strike. And these workers wanted to take care of their parents or their patients. They weren't union members. They crossed the picket line, and now they're getting done for union dues and fees illegally.
Wow. Now, here's the thing. This goes before the NLRB, right? Or does it go to a regular court? It goes to the National Labor Relations Board. Okay. And when it goes before the NLRB, what could they do? I mean, is it a slap on the wrist for the union and they say to the union, you can't charge these people? Or is there something more substantial?
Well, what's going to happen, it will go to a regional director, a regional office up in Boston, and they will look at it, and they will basically say, here are the facts. The fact that they're trying to get union dues from non-members who had resigned union membership prior to the strike and worked during the strike, that is just a drop-dead flat question. They can't do it. The law says that. Every federal court in the country has said that. They've talked about this dues collection from a non-member during a contract hiatus. They can't do it. Now, ones that may not have gotten their resignation in time and crossed the picket line, that's another story. The NLRB will say, well, you've got to go exhaust all the remedies under the union constitution and bylaws before you can come to us. And that's where the union imposes the fines, and they can go to state court to collect those. And it can be up to all the money you earned during the strike if you didn't resign properly. That's why we put out a legal notice back in March of this year, last year, warning the nurses who wanted to go to work and wanted to continue taking care of their patients that they had to get this right. They had to thread the needle correctly. Otherwise, this is what exactly was going to happen. The union was going to send them a note and say, oh, by the way, you're going to be disciplined in a union kangaroo court for violations of the Constitution and bylaws, and we're going to fine you up to the wages you earned by working at the strike. So we put out that legal notice back in March. We said, here's what you have to do if you want to continue to work. Lots of workers took our advice there. They did it right. But now the MNAs are universally saying anyone who worked or, during the strike, now that the thing is settled, you got to pay us the union dues for the period that the contract wasn't enforced.
Wow.
We're going to win the case on behalf of those non-members that did it right. But the ones that didn't do it right, they're going to end up probably in state court. And the MNA, claiming to represent all these employees, will take them to state court to get them to pay these fines in violation of the union constitution. So there's a lot more to go here, Jim, including the decertification vote, which is going to occur. Mail ballots will be sent out, I think, in February. Now, there's been a stipulation as to the election. Our attorneys basically help the employees make sure that decertification petition got through the process.
Yeah.
That's another thing the unions do. They will file unfair labor practice charges. They'll block the election. And in this case, the election's going to go forward. So they will have a chance to vote. And win or lose, unfortunately, if they win, these workers will be freed from the MNA.
Yep.
But if they lose, those workers that are fighting back will still be covered by the MNA and still be forced to have them represent them in the workplace. That's the injustice of labor policy, really.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of the striking nurses going back, doing job sharing with the replacement nurses, and working alongside nurses they cursed at and called scab as they crossed the picket line because they were more concerned about patient care than they were about this. And I have great concerns about when they all go back. I think on the 22nd, they all go back to work and they'll be doing this job sharing. And you can't pick more negative PR than going out on strike and saying, "Oh, it's for patient care," when you're going out on strike in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, and these people, they were our heroes. Last year, they were the ones that were saving lives and protecting people. And now, with all the federal mandates as it relates to health care and the Supreme Court decision that came down yesterday as it relates to health professionals who are involved in taking Medicare and Medicaid, the Department of Labor is going to force them to do something they may disagree with now. And now the unions are demagoguing those that wanted to exercise their professional responsibility and their desire to take care of their patients. I mean, it's really It's really a crazy world, Jim.
Yeah, it's. I'll tell you what, it's sickening. Mark Mix is from the National Right to Work Foundation. He is the president. We have a nurse suing and saying, you're trying to collect illegal union dues from me. This is more bad stuff, all about the Massachusetts Nurses Association. I was the first to say it. They're guilty of malpractice, trying to enforce nurse to patient ratios that they failed to get, going through the legislature, going through the Department of Public Health, and then finally going to voters, and voters saying, no, you can't have it. But they went out on strike for it in Worcester because they thought they could take on a for-profit hospital. And it's just not good. Mark, thank you very much. I hope we can talk with you again and get more insight into this as the process moves along.
Well, Jim, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about it. Thank you for bringing in and raising the issue up. It's really important. So keep up your good work, and we'll keep up ours, and we'll hopefully talk again about some success as we work the way through the process now.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Have a good day and a good weekend. Now, Mark Mix, National Right to Work Foundation.